Hello everyone and welcome to a new video, and once again for this movie content we return to the world of Collider, responding to another article that I've been asked to have a look at, and this time the 6 worst R-rated horror movies of all time ranked. Um, so it's going to be an interesting one to respond to because so I'm based in the UK, and we don't have the R rating. We operate in 12, 15 and 18. So the R rating is one that sort of typically responds to things like sort of quite brutal violence and things like quite disturbing content. It responds to sort of quite adult themes. And as this piece here, which is linked below by Marcel Ardavan, um, writes, it's sort of horror is a genre that is always pushing boundaries. It's always trying to be quite disturbing by its very nature. Um, and horror is probably the genre most populated with R-rated films. R-rated films. So this is going to be a sort of an interesting one. Sort of, is it just going to be a ranking really of sort of 6 bad horror films? R ratings don't necessarily make films good or bad in the same sense that no rating makes a film good or bad. It is what it does with its techniques, what it does with the things it depicts on screen. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to react essentially to these videos. So these are films that were deemed by some rating body in America to be particularly violent, to be particularly adult, to be particularly disturbing or distressing. Let's see what it looks like. The Reaping. So this, yeah. A film from 2007. So The Reaping is a film. It's got Hilary Swank there. You see in the picture, and essentially it's this town, and I remember watching this ages ago. Something about sort of there's a thing that sort of looks like the 10 plagues of Egypt, and so she sort of is trying to sort of debunk it, and then things happen. It feels I watched this a long time ago, so I can't really say too much about it in terms of the detail. I remember scenes. I think there's a scene in which sort of, from what I remember, I really remember a single shot where sort of she's looking up and there's like locusts or whatever. Um, it Yeah, I mean, religious horror is quite hard to land. I feel if this was made nowadays, there's a film called The Unholy, which came out in 2020, that sort of touches on similar things. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan is a journalist who sort of is disgraced, sort of investigates miracles or whatever, looking for redemption or not. Um, this, I mean, I've seen this once that I can barely bring it to mind. Suggests all you need to say, fear.com. Uh, my goodness, we're raking, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel already. Fear.com 2002, in this period where sort of the emergence of the internet, really a different internet to the internet we know nowadays, tied into quite a lot of horror films. And sort of the era of sort of analog media being terrifying, things like The Ring, things like Pulse, things like viral, these sorts of um, films that were sort of based around essentially this new media and sort of how it essentially ghosts in the machine. Um, Fear.com again is very much, it's a film of its time, should we say. Um, but I don't believe it was even rated particularly good then. um, this is, I'm getting the vibe, just a list of naff horror films. I'm very much feeling that already. Um, and from what I remember, again, it's sort of lame. I think there's an excellent video of good Toby reviews looking at this, which I will link below if there is. I think there is definitely one by Ryan Hollinger, which I'll also link. Talking about this film, again, it's fuzzy, and the problem with a lot of these sort of early internet horrors is that they feel incredibly dated now. They really sort of don't stand up because the internet has evolved so fast. But I think these sort of the early 2000s horror films and the sort of the sense they're quite frenetic energy in terms of editing and depiction and stuff are quite interesting, I would say. So let's see what comes next before Webcast and Legend. Urban Legends Final Cut. Oh, I think this is a bit harsh. Again, early 2000s horror. So Urban Final Cut, so a sequel to Urban Legend, and it's not really a sequel. There's a like a film competition on the campus, and a serial killer essentially begins kicking in, sort of serial killer in a fencing mask, that sort of killing people involved with this production, and there's a naff twist with a twin. I mean, I think it's fun enough. It's not overly brilliant, and sort of perhaps the identity of the killer is really quite obvious. I have talked about this film and sort of my 90s horror film slasher ranking video, which again I'll link below. I mean, it is essentially just another slasher, but I don't think it claimed to be particularly much else, even with the sort of the meta commentary of the film school and sort of, I think there are sort of lots of Hitchcock references and that sort of stuff. I think this is perhaps an unfair placement, shall we say. Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. This is just a list of bad horror films. So the Paul Rudd one, as you see. Halloween 6, Michael Myers, it turns out, is governed by a cult. And there is a baby character that Paul Rudd character has to protect, and Donald Pleasance is still around, wandering around. And this is a film that has quite a famous, famously tough production history. And there are two quite radically different versions of it: a producer's cut, and then the one that actually went out into cinema screens. And this is a film that sort of over explains Michael Myers to the point of absurdity. As this piece says here, the convoluted cult mythology feels forced and unnecessary, and it really sort of does. Now, I am perhaps not as harsh on the cult form stuff as I think many people are, because I think you're getting to the point where this figure can't just keep reappearing with no sort of real plot progression or whatever. But I mean, it's not a brilliant film. Again, it's kind of a run-of-the-mill slasher. And the reason I think everyone drags on it so much is because it exists within the Halloween world and within films, the original Halloween, Halloween 3 now, and Halloween 4 that are sort of markedly more critically and popularly received. So it's kind of almost damned by comparison. And it's not brilliant, but again, it's one of those films you put on, you know what you're going to get, I would say. Cabin Fever 2016. The remake of it. It was remade, a bizarre remake. So this is a film that like 5 people go to a cabin, and there's some sort of flesh-eating bacteria in the water, I think, and sort of essentially it's body horror. Their bodies collapse. Lots and lots of gore. Oh, a local infected man stumbles into the property. This might be the new one. As it says here, it's kind of a film that sort of just does exactly the same thing. It's a weird remake because it has essentially nothing new to the original. It's not a bad film by any means. And if you'd seen this one first, probably be some degree of fondness, but it's a sort of bizarre choice to remake and not change anything. Remakes always, I think, should justify their own existence. They should sort of, in some sense, build or subvert or play with an original text. But this film doesn't. I've seen it, but again, if you're going to watch one, you'd watch the original, I think. And then lastly, I mean, it's no surprise because it was the picture at the top of the article, The Devil Inside. So in this period of sort of possession horrors and found footage. And this is a film that has lived on in infamy for its ending, or I should say, lack thereof. By sort of driving along, and there's like a car crash or something, and then it cuts to if you want to find out what happens next, go to this website. And as the article says there, the website doesn't even exist anymore. So it's sort of, if you watch this film, you're quite literally granted no degree of ending. And it's sort of generic found footage, generic possession, but the concerted choice to not provide any degree of resolution, to sort of force people to go to an extra resource, was a bad one, a bizarre one. And I remember the marketing of this when it came out originally. I remember it being looking terrifying. I remember seeing where sort of a lip is pulled down, there's sort of like a cross inside, and if it actually offered some degree of resolution, it would probably essentially be remembered as essentially just another of the Blair found footage that came out in the wake of Paranormal Activity, um, but as the piece says here, sort of the way that it wraps up, or indeed doesn't, um, very much, sort of kills any goodwill you might have for it. So yeah, I think that's a fair. I'd say this one again. It's all right for what it does, but then it sort of doesn't finish. The film does not end. Um, so you've got to rank it badly. Whereas some of the other ones I think are forgettable and annoying, and where I call them some of the worst. As I say, I don't overly know our ratings, but I'm sure I could find. Yeah, I'm sure I could write another list with another list of generic run-of-the-mill slashers that are horrible and forgettable. And this I think is fair because it doesn't even deliver on its own promise. It doesn't deliver a film at all. Um, so yes, I mean, if you're American or based on that, or if you're sort of more familiar with the R rating system than I am, I would love to hear some thoughts. I would love to hear your views on this list and sort of any other bad films. I feel the list essentially just folded into sort of a naff horror film list, which is not quite what I was expecting when it was pitched to me. I suspect people wanted me to talk about The Devil Inside. Um, yes, I would love to hear, are there any films that should be on this list, or indeed should not be on this list? Any defenders like myself and Urban Legends Final Cut? What are your thoughts? Please do comment below, and of course, please do comment below any videos you'd like me to make, any ideas you have. I'm very keen on sort of, I make these videos because people asked me to look at these things, and I'm very, very keen on doing so. For any future works. So yes, otherwise, thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully you found it a little entertaining as we discussed some rubbish horror films. I'll wrap up here. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.